All right, this video is to help with the Thursday Intro to Subtraction Desmos. So the agenda was we did a which one doesn't belong warm up on Zoom. That was just for attendance. And then you were to complete the Desmos activities. That's what's graded. So you'll click on integer operations first. So the Desmos, you can log in. And then the first question you should see is this one. It says add them up. So use the sketch tool to finish each number sentence. So you're just going to add them, 5 plus 3, put your answer here. So you're just going to sketch on this one, write your answer for all 4, and click next, so the next one. So you're just answering 5 plus 3, 5 plus 2, 5 plus 1. On number 2, it says notice patterns. So what pattern do you notice? So looking at these number sentences, what is a pattern you see? So you can start your sentence with one pattern I see is a pattern that you see or notice. The next question is, what is the same about each number sentence? So once I go from one to the next, what stays the same? So you can start your sentence with one thing that stays the same is. So something stays the same for each one. You can use the sketch tool if you want to show it. So maybe like changing the color. So for instance, one thing I see that stays the same is the 5 and the plus. So I could write is 5 plus. And then the last one says what's different? One thing that changes is, and again, you can use the sketch tool if you want. One thing that changes for me is it looks like the second number is changing and the answer is changing. So either one of those is something that's changing or is different. So finish these sentences. You should have 3 sentences. I started them for you if you want to use these sentence starters, but you got to fill in, don't leave it blank because I won't give you credit. And then click share with the class. So a pattern, something the same each time, and then something different each time. Number 3, it says predict. So use the sketch tool. So use the whiteboard to write the missing expression in the pattern. So there's a pattern. So it looks like the 5 is staying the same. So the 5 would stay. The plus stayed the same. Or the addition. And then it looks like this number right here is going down. So 3, 2, 1, 0. And so if we're thinking about a number line with 0 right here, we know that we have 1, and we know that once we go lower, we get to -1. So the next number, if it's going down, should be -1. And we actually already know that 5 plus -1 is 4, because 5, and then we go left 1, it's like we take away 1. So it does make sense that the answer is 4. So you should write your expression and then explain your thinking. So you could say something like the 5 and addition stay the same, and after 0 comes -1. So that's just an idea to help you. So explain your thinking. How do we know that this is true? Well, the 5 stayed the same, the addition stayed the same, and the second number was going down. So after 0 comes -1. All right, feel free to pause anytime. Number 4, it says apply your pattern. Use what you've noticed in the previous screen to finish these number sentences. So you'll notice that the first number is staying the same. So that stays the same. And the second number is going down by 1. So it's going down by 1. is going down 1. So 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, -3. And if the pattern continues, my answer is going down. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So it's going down. So, and it makes sense because 5 plus -3, it's like I go right to the 5 and then back 3, it's like I'm at 2. So this makes sense. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. That's it for slide 4. That was for addition. It says now let's subtract. So use the sketch tool to finish the sentence. So 5 minus 3 equals, 5 minus 2 equals, 5 minus 1 equals. So you're just going to write on here. So 5 minus 0 is 5. And so you'll just write your answers here and then click next. You should have 4 numbers here. Number 6 is asking the same question as when it was addition. What pattern do you notice? So looking at this, what is a pattern you notice? So one pattern I notice is, and then you're going to write the pattern you see. What is the same about each number sentence? So one thing that is the same is, so what stays the same? And then what's changing each time? One thing that changes each time is, so what stays, what changes, and what pattern do you see? So it looks like, again, the second number is going down. So again, it looks like the second number is going down. So you could say one thing that changes each time is the second number goes down. So you're going to finish these sentences. I don't care about your grammar, but I do want a complete thought or complete sentence. So I have these little sentence starters for you. You want to erase the line and put your own thought and then share it with the class. So as this goes down, it looks like this is going up. Oh no, it's going down as well, actually. Oh no, it's going up. Number 7, it says predict the pattern. So if this pattern continues, subtract 3, subtract 2, subtract 1, subtract 0. What would come next? So if it's subtract 3, and then subtract 2, and then subtract 1, and then subtract 0. Next would be subtract. So 3, 2, 1, 0. The next one should be -1. So we can give it like this again. If I'm going 3, 2, 1, 0, the next one should be -1. So subtracting -1. The next would be subtracting -1. Number 8, it says predict the patterns part 2. Use the sketch tool to write the missing expression in the pattern. So again, we know that the first number and the subtraction are going to stay the same. So we're going to match that pattern. And then next, it looks like I'm going 3, 2, 1, 0. So it's going down. So the next one should be -1. So 3, 2, 1, 0 has to be -1. I know it looks weird, but that's the next number in the pattern. And then if it's going up by 1, then each time it should be going up by 1. So from 5, it has to be 6 because it has to match the pattern. All right. So right for explaining your thinking, you could put the 5 minus stayed the same. The second number went down by 1. So how did we pick our answer? The 5 and the subtraction stayed the same, and the second number was going down, so it had to be -1. Oops, there you go. So something like that. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. It's your thinking, so however you thought about it. Number 9, it says apply your pattern. So it looks like the first one is going to stay the same, and the subtraction is going to stay the same. The next number is going down, so 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, -3. So the second number is going down. And so we're going to look at what happens to our answer. So it looks like 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, next should be 6, 7, and 8. So if the pattern continues, it's going up by 1. So you're going to keep adding 1 to the answer. So as this number goes down, this one goes up. So you're going to write those in and then click next. Number 10, it says equivalent expressions. Each expression has a partner with the same value. So somebody on the left side matches somebody on the right. They have the same answer. Expressions with the same value are called equivalent. So this side has an equivalent expression, meaning the same. Equivalent meaning the same. Use the sketch tool to draw a line between each pair of equivalent expressions. So I'm going to use the line tool. I'll do a couple with you, and then I want you to finish it. So 5 minus 3 is 2, and 5 plus -3 is also 2. So subtracting 3 is the same as adding a negative. We've seen this before. Remember when you guys were writing subtraction and I wanted you to write them as addition? So subtracting is the same as adding a negative. Subtracting a positive is like adding a negative. So it's basically like I take the plus that was on the 3 and I just move it to the front. And I move the negative closer to the 3. So 5 minus 2 would be like 5 plus -2. So you're going to draw your lines. 5 minus 0 is 5, and 5 plus 0 is 5. So no matter if I subtract or add, the answer will still be 5 because I'm not adding or taking anything away. So don't forget to finish these two. And then we saw that 5 minus -1, well, if we look back over here, 5 minus -1 was 6, which is the same as 5 plus 1. So remember, this is the same as 5 plus 1 because this gave me 6. So you can think of it like you're at 5 on the number line and your friend tells you to go left, but then turn around. Or your friend tells you to turn around, oops, and then turn around again. So it's like you're going back where you came from. So this may be a way to think about it. So let's say you're 5. You're going down the positive side, and this tells you turn around, but then there's another one tells you to turn around again. So it's like nothing happened. You're still going to the right. So it's like it told you to turn around twice. So these two negatives kind of like cancel each other out. So these two little subtracting and a negative, it's like they cancel each other out. So they make each other into like they did nothing. It's almost like they did nothing. So taking away a negative is like turning around and then turning around again. It cancels each other out. You're back to the direction you were going. So one trick could be, this almost looks like an addition sign. So one trick to remember that they cancel each other out is to just turn them into a plus. So one trick could be that to remember that they cancel each other out is to just turn this into a plus. It almost looks like a plus, so we could turn it into 1. So 5 minus -1 is the same as 5 plus 1. 5 minus -2 would be the same as 5 plus 2, and then 5 minus -3 gives me the same answer as 5 plus 3. And we saw that on the other side. 5 minus -3 was 8. So it's like I was adding. 5 minus negative 2 is 7, so it's almost like I was just adding 2. 5 minus negative 1 was 6, so it's almost like I was adding. So that's why those match. So you're going to finish connecting them. I connected 3 of them for you. You have 4 more to go. You should have something connecting to each one. Number 11, it says develop a rule. So let's say A is unknown and it's in the middle. Drag the movable points to show where these numbers would go on a number line relative to A. So in terms of A. So if A is in the middle and I add 3 to it, I know it's going to be on the right side. I don't know where on the right, but it's going to be somewhere over here. So if A is here and I'm adding 3 more, it's going to get bigger. Bigger goes to the right. If I'm taking 3 away, then it's going to get smaller. So it's going to be smaller than A. So adding 3 makes it bigger. Subtracting 3 makes it smaller. So it doesn't matter where they go, but the subtraction should go on the left side of A. The addition should go on the right. Makes it bigger, makes it smaller. For the next one, we know that adding a negative is like subtracting. So I know that plus negative 3 is like subtracting 3. Remember, these were the same. We've seen this before. And so that leaves this one with only one option. Remember, I told you it almost like it turns into a little plus. And so this is the same as addition of a positive. So they only had one choice to go because there has to have a matching opposite. How did you decide where to place the numbers? One thing you could say is that you knew where I knew adding it's bigger, which is the right side, and subtracting gets smaller, which is the left. And then for the bottom, I flipped it. So I know that adding makes it bigger, subtracting makes it smaller. For the bottom, it was kind of like the opposite. Adding made it smaller because it was adding a negative. So subtracting a negative had to make it bigger. You don't have to say this, but if you are stuck, there's an idea. And then the last question says to reflect. So far we've done a bunch of adding and subtracting, both positive and negative numbers. We're going to make some rules about addition and subtraction. Make a claim or more. You can make one or more claim about any rules we need to follow when we're adding or subtracting. So when we, for example, over here, when we add a negative, it's like we're subtracting. You can say because they get the same answer. So adding a negative was like subtracting. And subtracting a negative we add the positive or opposite. So you can think of this as addition. So I know it's a weird concept. We'll definitely practice more. But subtracting is equivalent to adding the opposite. So subtracting 3 is equivalent to adding the opposite of positive 3, which was negative 3. Subtracting negative 3 is the same as adding the opposite, so plus a positive. So subtracting is the same expression as adding the opposite. So we can change subtraction to adding the opposite. So something like that, just one sentence. You only had to make one claim. Here's some ideas if you're stuck. So subtracting is like adding the opposite. Or maybe a rule that you're going to make is that the negatives cancel, the subtraction signs cancel each other out and turn into a plus. There's too many of them, so they turn into a plus. It's like turning around and turning around again. So something like that. It doesn't have to be like exactly how I wrote it. When you're done, you're going to do the cool down. So you'll click on the assessment and you have a question. Your question is, which expression has the same value? So remember, thinking back to our Desmos, we don't change the first one, and we can make subtracting 8 into plus. Remember, we can squeeze a little plus in here. So remember, we don't change the first one, and then we can squeeze a little plus in here, adding the opposite. So subtracting positive is like adding a negative. So you're going to pick the one that you think is correct, and then it's going to ask you how you knew which one to pick. And then don't forget to turn it in, mark it as done in Google Classroom, and I will see you on Friday.